Welcome to Zoe Stories. I was hired as a maid. Now I'm trapped as a woman. My name is Danielle Carter, and up until a few weeks ago, I was just another guy struggling to make ends meet. 24 years old, broke, and barely scraping by in a rundown apartment, I was desperate. Job applications went unanswered. My landlord was on the verge of kicking me out, and my fridge was empty except for a half-eaten sandwich. I wasn't always like this. A year ago, I had dreams, plans. College was supposed to be my way out, but after dropping out due to financial issues, everything spiraled. No degree, no stable work, no future. That's when I saw it, a job listing buried deep in an online forum. Live-in maid wanted, generous salary, room and board included, discretion required. It sounded too good to be true. A full-time maid? Me? I had no experience cleaning houses, but at this point, I'd do anything. I almost ignored it. Almost. But then I saw the salary, enough to clear my debts in months. Enough to start over. So I applied. The reply came almost instantly. Report to the DuPont estate tomorrow at noon. Formal interview required. I had no idea that walking through those doors would change my life forever. The DuPont estate was unlike anything I had ever seen, an enormous Gothic mansion, its iron gates towering over me like the entrance to another world. My stomach twisted as I stepped inside, my cheap sneakers sinking into the plush red carpet. I expected a normal interview, questions about cleaning experience, work ethic, maybe even a background check. Instead, I sat across from Madame DuPont, an elegant woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a knowing smile, as she delivered the bombshell. The position requires full immersion, she said, folding her hands neatly. You must present yourself as a woman at all times. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? You'll be provided a uniform, training, and proper grooming. But for this arrangement to work, Danielle must replace Daniel completely. I let out a nervous laugh. You want me to pretend to be a woman? She didn't blink. Not pretend, my dear. Become. My breath caught in my throat. Was she serious? Was this some kind of joke? I should have walked out right then and there. But the paycheck loomed in my mind. Rent was due in days. My phone bill was overdue. I had nothing left. Could I do it? My hands curled into fists on my lap as a war raged inside me. The idea was absurd, insane, humiliating, and yet, a strange, forbidden curiosity flickered beneath my anxiety. What if I could pull it off? Just for a while? It was just a disguise, right? A performance? I swallowed hard. And if I refuse? Madame DuPont's smile didn't waver. Then you may leave. But if you accept, you'll have stability, comfort, and a future. I wanted to say no. I should have said no. Instead, I heard my own voice, shaky but resolute. I'll do it. The moment the words left my mouth, I felt like I'd signed away my identity. Madame DuPont's lips curled into a satisfied smile. Excellent. Elise will handle your transformation. A door opened behind me, and a woman in a crisp black dress stepped forward. She was younger than Madame DuPont, maybe in her 30s, with piercing blue eyes that assessed me like I was a project. Come with me, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. I followed her down a long hallway, my heart hammering in my chest. Was I really doing this? Could I actually go through with it? Elise led me into a room, bright, modern, with an oversized vanity, surrounded by lights. Laid out on the counter were makeup brushes, a wig, a corset, and my stomach lurched, a black and white maid's uniform. She closed the door behind us and turned to me. Undress. I hesitated. What? She arched an eyebrow. You agreed to this, didn't you? I swallowed hard. My hands trembled as I pulled off my hoodie, then my jeans, until I stood there in nothing but my boxers. Elise handed me a set of lacy undergarments. Put these on. My face burned, but I obeyed. The fabric felt alien against my skin, delicate in a way that made me hyper-aware of my body. Next came the corset. Elise fastened it tightly, making my ribs protest. My breathing became shallow, and I gripped the vanity to steady myself. "Good," she murmured, stepping back to admire her work. "Now sit." I sank into the chair, watching in stunned silence as she began applying makeup, foundation, contour, eyeliner. The person in the mirror slowly changed. My sharp jaw softened, my lips painted a deep red. Then she placed the wig on my head, a cascade of wavy chestnut brown hair. When she finally finished, she turned me toward the mirror. My breath caught in my throat. I looked real. Not like a man in a costume. Not like a joke. I looked like a woman. My stomach twisted. Elise placed a hand on my shoulder. "Welcome to your new life, Danielle." A shiver ran down my spine. And for the first time, I wondered, had I made a mistake? I stared at my reflection, my mind a whirlwind of emotions.
Danielle.
The name felt foreign, yet it clung to me like a shadow. My lips parted slightly, painted red and unfamiliar. My hands, now delicate and manicured, trembled as I touched my face.
Was this really me?
A knock at the door made me jump. "Madame Dupont is waiting," Elise said, her voice calm but firm. I turned to her, my pulse hammering. "I don't know if I can do this." She tilted her head. "You already have." I swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. The transformation was done. I could feel the corset cinching my waist, the stockings hugging my legs, the unfamiliar weight of the wig on my shoulders. But walking out of this room as Danielle meant crossing a line I wasn't sure I could come back from. I could rip everything off right now, walk out the door, and pretend this never happened. But then what? Back to an empty fridge. A landlord who didn't care about my excuses. Another string of rejection emails. Or I could take a deep breath, step through that door, and step into a life where I had security, stability. I clenched my jaw, feeling my heart pound against the tight fabric of the dress. This was it. With a shaky breath, I forced my chin up, smoothed down the skirt, and turned the doorknob. The door swung open. Danielle took her first step forward. The moment I stepped into Madame Dupont's study, the air seemed to thicken. The walls were lined with dark wooden bookshelves, the scent of polished mahogany mixing with the faint perfume of fresh roses. Madame Dupont sat behind a grand oak desk, her eyes scanning me with quiet amusement. Elise stepped forward and curtsied. "Danielle is ready, madam."
Danielle.
The name sent a strange shiver down my spine. I hesitated, my fingers twitching against the stiff fabric of my uniform. My posture felt unnatural, back straight, shoulders pulled in, legs pressed together in a way I wasn't used to. The corset kept my breathing shallow, my every movement dictated by the tightness around my waist. Even the simple act of standing felt different, deliberate, feminine. Madame Dupont's lips curled. "Walk toward me." My pulse spiked. Walking looked easy, but the heeled shoes on my feet told a different story. I took a cautious step, then another, feeling my balance shift. My hips swayed slightly, an effect of the heels, the corset, or both. Elise hummed approvingly. "You're learning quickly." I wasn't sure if I was learning or just desperately avoiding humiliation. Every step felt like I was walking on a tightrope. Finally, I reached Madame Dupont's desk and stood there uncertain. She examined me like a painter assessing a nearly finished canvas. "Much better than I expected," she mused. "You have the features for it, soft, delicate. I imagine no one would question it." Her words sent a jolt through me. No one would question it. A strange mix of pride and fear coiled in my stomach. Did I want to be convincing? Did that mean I was doing well, or that I was losing myself in this? Madame Dupont leaned forward. "From this moment on, Danielle is gone. You will eat, sleep, and work as Danielle. Your voice, your mannerisms, your presence, everything must be refined." My throat tightened. For how long? Her smile was unreadable. "For as long as you wish to remain here." I barely registered Elise stepping closer until I felt her hands on my shoulders, adjusting my posture. "Relax," she murmured. "Confidence is key." Confidence. How was I supposed to be confident when I barely recognized myself? But as I stood there, corseted and painted, the line between Daniel and Danielle blurred just a little more. And I wasn't sure if I was terrified or intrigued. The silver tray in my hands trembled as I made my way through the grand dining hall. Chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, casting long shadows across the polished floors. The air buzzed with quiet conversation as guests, draped in elegant attire, sipped wine from crystal glasses. And I, Danielle, was serving them. Not Daniel. Not the desperate young man who had taken this job for survival. But Danielle, the poised, delicate maid who moved with grace, who smiled when spoken to, who curtsied when acknowledged. A month ago, this would have been unthinkable. A month ago, I would have run. But tonight, as I approached Madame Dupont's table, something shifted. I placed a fresh glass of wine in front of her, careful, precise. Her eyes met mine, assessing, searching. "You've adjusted well," she said, voice smooth as silk. Almost as if this were always meant to be. A lump formed in my throat. Was she right? I wanted to protest, to tell her that this was temporary, that Daniel still existed beneath the makeup, the corset, the uniform. But the truth stuck to my ribs like honey. I had learned to walk in heels without stumbling. I had mastered my voice, soft and measured. I had watched my own reflection shift, day by day, until Danielle no longer felt like a costume. A burst of laughter from the guests jolted me back to reality. My hands clenched around the tray. Was this who I was now? The clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation faded into the background. Then a voice, deep and familiar. "Daniel?" I froze. The tray nearly slipped from my fingers. My heart slammed against my ribs as I turned toward the voice. There, standing in the doorway, was him. An old friend. A piece of my past. Someone who knew me as Daniel. His eyes widened, flicking over my appearance, my painted lips, the curve of my dress, the lace cuffs at my wrists. Recognition.
Shock.
And in that moment, everything came crashing down. The silence between us stretched, thick with disbelief. His eyes searched mine, confusion flickering across his face. I braced myself for the inevitable questions, the judgment, the disbelief. But as I stood there, corseted and painted, something inside me shifted. I wasn't trembling. I wasn't ashamed. For the first time since stepping into Madame Dupont's world, I realized something. I wasn't trapped. Danielle wasn't just a disguise, a survival tactic, or a means to an end. Somewhere along the way, she had become me. I straightened my shoulders, lifting my chin. "It's Danielle now," I said, my voice softer but unwavering. His lips parted slightly, but he said nothing. 1,000 questions hung in the air between us, but I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I turned back to the dining hall, where the chandeliers still glowed, where Madame Dupont watched with a knowing smile, where I belonged in a way I never had before. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Would I stay here forever? Would I leave one day, carving a new path for Danielle beyond these walls? I didn't have all the answers. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from the questions. I took a deep breath, let the moment settle in my chest. And then, with quiet confidence, I walked forward, not away. Thank you for joining us on another captivating journey through Zoe's stories. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a tale. Until next time, keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep believing in the magic of storytelling. See you in the next chapter.